Hello, my name is Markus Goebel. I'm from the SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud Product Management, and today I'm going to give you an overview on the topic of Clean Core, what it is actually, how to get there, and to get a better understanding what Clean Core, why to do Clean Core. So without further ado, let's get started. I will also give some example going in a little bit more detail into one dimension of Clean Core, extensibility, so that you can get a better feeling actually what this means for a specific dimension of Clean Core. Let's get started with the why to do it. Today, customers facing challenges different from the past, that the environment, business environment is changing rapidly. They need to adapt business processes more quickly. New technologies are emerging, AI, for example, where they also quickly need to adapt their business processes, their systems to these new technologies. And also landscape complexity is increasing with distributed systems. And all this means for the system, technically, customers need to stay up to date with their system, with the functionality and the business processes in the system. And this is actually where Clean Core can help. So the benefits when following Clean Core guidelines, principles is more agility, to be up to date with the system, also then to leverage the latest innovations for customers, but also besides agility, being up to date with the system, also to have efficient and secure operations, but also data to value is important, to have the right data in the system, in the right quality for reliable forecast, for example, or for precise predictions. So there are several guiding principles for Clean Core, starting with avoid whatever is not necessary and what does not bring any benefit, any value to your business. This might be extensions, talking about one dimension of Clean Core, but also avoiding unnecessary data growth, avoid whatever is not necessary. Next one is be aware. So not everything can be avoided, but things which are not Clean Core compliant, which are not in line with the guidelines of Clean Core, at least to be aware, okay, what are these things, so that you can over time then reduce this and get even in those areas where in a short time frame or right in the beginning you cannot get Clean Core compliant, that you can get closer to Clean Core over time. Also being cloud ready to do, for example, extensions in a way, even if your system is on-premise today, that later on also you're ready to move to cloud, to move parts of the functionality to cloud, to integrate with cloud applications, to do and build everything in a cloud compliant way already. And talking about cloud also for extensibility, for additional functionality, also to leverage the SAP Business Technology Platform for further innovations and extensions. So these are 4 Clean Core guiding principles. Now, for sure, you will ask yourself, what exactly means this now, these 4 principles for my system? And this is where we come to the second chapter of the presentation. What exactly is Clean Core? So as you can see here, Clean Core spans across several dimensions. Extensibility, this is what today probably most people think about when hearing about Clean Core. But as you will see, this is much more than just extensibility. Nevertheless, extensibility here shown is the first dimension, where we also see later on then some more detailed example. When talking about Clean Core and extensibility, it's really to develop in a cloud compliant way, ABAP Cloud on-stack development or side-by-side development on BTP, and to avoid whatever extensions are not necessary, only to have the extensions where there's really value for your business. But also other dimensions like data. Here Clean Core is about reducing data volume, avoid unnecessary data in the system, but whatever data is in the system should be consistent, should be complete, so that you can use it for machine learning purposes, for example, for proper predictions. But also, of course, data needs to be in line with legal requirements, where data needs to be stored for certain time, or where data needs to be deleted due to legal requirements. When it comes to integrations, Clean Core means using standard APIs from SAP wherever possible. Not everywhere these standard APIs are available. Hence, for Clean Core, in line with Clean Core recommendations, you can, of course, build own APIs. Here it's recommended to build these in a modern way, OData, SOAP APIs, not to go for traditional RFC, IDOC, etc. APIs. And also, wherever applicable, use a modern event-driven design, for example. And when you build your own APIs, integrate them with a SAP application interface framework tool, so a SAP AIF, in order to have, for example, proper monitoring. Also, business process category is important for Clean Core to implement, and this is then also mainly, or first of all, targeting new systems, greenfield setup systems, to use best practice standard business processes from SAP wherever possible, integrated with standard recommendations, process recommendations from partners, but also then on a company level, establish company best practices and also properly document your business processes, how they are implemented and actually how they change over time. And finally, the dimension operations. This is going across all the other dimensions. So these are quite different recommendations here. Some more on the technical side, do proper housekeeping in terms of background jobs, for example, or in terms of authorizations, only those authorizations which are really required. But also for the life cycle of your system, have some plan, have some life cycle management plan when to do an upgrade, under which conditions, to have a fixed upgrade schedule on a regular basis, but also support package updates, do this on a regular basis. But also then for S/4HANA Private Cloud, align with SAP as a cloud provider, for example, to have contractual maintenance period agreed, that SAP can do some sort of maintenance in a proper alignment with you as a customer. So this was the rough overview, what the dimensions are for Clean Core. As mentioned, we will soon get in more detail into the dimension of extensibility. What is also important to mention, Clean Core is a journey. This, for most customers, is not something which can happen overnight. We need here really to differentiate between greenfield system setups on the one hand side and brownfield system conversions. When a customer starting greenfield with a new system, maybe with limited data takeover from a previously existing SAP ERP or S/4HANA system, then it's more about processes, governance, to establish the governance right away, to stay clean. Because greenfield systems, typically, if you do not something completely wrong during the implementations, are close to Clean Core. There are usually not many extensions in the beginning, not much data volume, but really establish the processes and the governance in order to stay Clean Core and understand the Clean Core principles and apply them right away when setting up the system. For brownfield customers, a customer who has a 20-year-old ERP system doing a system conversion to S/4HANA, that's a very different thing. Here, such a system cannot be Clean Core compliant overnight. This is a journey. This can take many years, especially if lots of custom code, lots of legacy custom code is involved. And here, what is important, what I explained before, really to realize, okay, to understand what do I have at the moment, where do I deviate from Clean Core. This is not something which will then go away immediately, but that you can plan accordingly, depending, okay, how much effort do I need to spend for a certain area to get Clean Core, and what is the benefit, and then put this on a timeline actually to get Clean Core. So there's no magic button for these systems. It's something which happens over time or has to be done over time. As mentioned here, now we are going a little bit more detail in one of the dimensions, the first dimension of Clean Core, extensibility, which I have shown. Here, first of all, it's important to understand what does clean core mean in the area of extensibility. As briefly already shown before, so there are different ways to be clean core compliant. One thing is build things side by side on SAP BTP. Different languages, programming environments here available, ABAP, Node.js, etc. But also on stack, you can build clean core compliant code with the ABAP Cloud 3-tier extensibility model. There is also, besides this tier 1, which is per default clean core, there's also something special here for S/4HANA Private Cloud on-premise, so-called tier 2, because from tier 1 you can only consume APIs which are officially released by SAP, but not in all area such APIs are already available. And tier 2 is a good possibility then for customers also to use other legacy APIs which are maybe not as modern as RAP-BO, for example, but some old BAPI which has been nominated, recommended by SAP, which customers then can wrap and still consume that API then from tier 1. So this is an enabler. Tier 2 is an enabler for development in tier 1, for cloud-like development in tier 1 in areas where not sufficient APIs are available yet. And finally, what is also available here in the 3-tier development model is the classic ABAP development, as you know it from the past, SAP ERP, S/4HANA. Here you can do everything. This is not considered clean core compliant, but still, as mentioned before, customers doing brownfield approach, system conversion will still have lots of custom code in that area. This will also not then go away automatically. But here, then the task in the clean core context is really look at the old coding in tier 3, what can be retired because it's not even used anymore, but or maybe where it's used, but SAP is providing meanwhile similar functionality so that it can be retired. And for the remaining coding, to renovate and to innovate in the direction over time, in the direction of tier 1, in order to be then clean core compliant, to have either on stack on ABAP Cloud compliant coding or side-by-side implementation on SAP BTP. And what is still possible here, of course, is also to adapt this coding. This cannot always be avoided. Also then touching old coding, for example, if you have implementations in SAP GUI area, where which is not available in tier 1, of course, you still might have even to build some new things here, even if it's not clean core compliant. APIs, I mentioned already, a very important topic for clean core compliant development if you want to develop in tier 1. So either you need a released API from SAP or a nominated API, which you then can wrap in tier 2. So there's a comprehensive overview in this GitHub repository, which is shown here, on which APIs are available. This also can be consumed then by ABAP Test Cockpit. We will see this a few slides later on, in order to identify where are you using APIs which are not released, which violate clean core 3-tier extensibility model recommendations, or where are you using released APIs. When an API is not yet available, or you need an API in an area which is not yet properly covered, there's also this customer influence channel shown here, where you can request an API from SAP and could either get a released API or a nomination recommendation for some legacy API which is sufficiently stable and meets the requirements, for example, in order to build then on tier 1 coding on top. There are many different guides here, very good and comprehensive guides, how to develop in the 3-tier extensibility model, how to develop in tier 1, how to build wrappers in tier 2, how old technologies map to new technologies. So I highly recommend to have a look at this. There's also here this ABAP Cloud community with lots of more resources on that topic, clean core compliant development, ABAP Cloud compliant development. And finally here the last part, that's what the final slides here of the presentation will be about, how to check this actually, and ABAP Test Cockpit, which you see on the right hand side, is then an important part here. So, but first of all, because before checking things in detail, the question is how to get an overview on clean core. So what we have here is the so-called Clean Core dashboard. It's rather new. A first version, initial version, was released rather recently. And a new version is currently in preparation with more information. This is available for all productive SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition systems. And customers can access this in SAP for Me for corresponding systems. And this is an idea not to have a in-depth deep dive tool for Clean Core topics, but rather to get a broader overview on the individual areas. Where do I stand with a given system in terms of Clean Core? And we are planning to enhance this on a regular basis with additional KPIs, with additional dimensions and additional hints and guidelines and tools regarding Clean Core. So here again the example, as we are here in the extensibility area, what does it mean then to be Clean Core compliant concerning what is shown in the Clean Core dashboard? This is about maximizing the share of Tier 1 coding, so as in the three-tier development model, which I've shown before, how much coding is in Tier 1 compared to the other coding, also to minimize the number of modifications. But there are also other sub-dimensions like usage, how much of the custom code is actually used, because unused custom code, again, is something which is a candidate for retirement. And also the quantity of custom code, how much custom code is executed in a system compared to the overall custom code. So in order to minimize the extensions only to these areas which are really required then. There are further detailed checks then beyond the Clean Core dashboard, and this is where we're coming then to the ABAP Test Cockpit, which I mentioned before. So the ABAP Test Cockpit provides possibilities, first of all, to check your coding in Tier 1. Many things in Tier 1, for example, that you're not using unreleased APIs is automatically already ensured by the development environment. By the ABAP development tools. In addition, there are then variants available in ABAP Test Cockpit, which check further whether you're violating any Tier 1 requirements or any Tier 1 guidelines. But the same you can do with any of your code. So, for example, you could also take existing custom code, Tier 3 custom code, which might be rather far from clear Tier 1 recommendations and guidelines, but still you can check, okay, where do I violate with a given piece of coding the ABAP Cloud Development Guidelines? And this way, then you can iteratively, also for single packages, for single pieces of coding, single applications if you've built, then you can step by step then address this and reduce any violations of ABAP Cloud Development Guidelines. So this is a very valuable tool for really getting there in terms of Clean Core extensibility, getting clean. Also, exemptions are important here. So not everything, especially when checking your classic ABAP developments. Of course, many things will not be Clean Core compliant, say, for example, SAP GUI. SAP GUI will be never supported in Tier 1. But in Tier 3, customers typically have quite some amount of SAP GUI usage. This is then something which you cannot just make Tier 1 compliant, but then you can exempt it so that these errors for the time being then go away. And focus then on other things, other parts of the logic, other parts of the coding, getting them Clean Core compliant. And here you see some example how you can then set for a given error which you find such an exemption. And also exemptions, once you have exemptions, of course, it's then important, coming back to what I mentioned before, to have an overview, to be aware, okay, where do I violate things? Where do I violate Clean Core recommendations, Clean Core guidelines? Here, whenever you have an exemption, you can see this here in the exemption browser of the ABAP Test Cockpit. So it's not gone, but for the time being, you can focus on the important parts, actually, where you want to get Clean Core compliant, but still say, okay, what did I exempt? And finally, also besides ABAP Test Cockpit, there are other tools, but also services like mentioned here, the intelligent custom code management, which goes then into even much more detail, clustering your coding based on how old it is, how it's used, and identifying different code clusters which belong together in your legacy coding, where then you can identify, okay, where do I start first, where would it pay off first to get clean core compliant. With that, I'm at the end of my presentation, and I would open the Q&A, and I see already the first questions here. Live Q&A. So, as mentioned, I see the first questions here. So there is a question from Rajiv. Usage of standard IDOC BAPIs isn't a part of Clean Core. No, it's not part of Clean Core. So, I mean, there are two aspects here. IDOC, first of all, that's remote communication. It's not a Clean Core compliant integration technology. As said, Clean Core compliant is OData and web services in terms of integration, in terms of interfaces. BAPIs, it's similar. BAPI, it's actually twofold. As you probably know, BAPI you can call remotely, but you can also call it locally in your coding. So BAPI is a good example where in areas where no released APIs exist, SAP also then nominates for this tier 2, which I've shown, BAPIs which are sufficiently stable and compliant, for example, with RAP implementations. And then you can wrap such a nominated BAPI for local consumption, but also for remote consumption, for remote calls. SAP can suggest certain BAPIs, which then can be used as a bridge when no sufficient remote API is available. Then there's a question from Chaitana. Do we have any documentation references for Clean Core principles? Yes, you saw a few examples here for extensibility. The guides, which I have shown on one of the slides. Okay, so I don't think you see the slides anymore. Maybe I can just go back here. So these for ABAP Cloud are the guidelines. And also further, here they are. And further on, there's also a central Clean Core page. If you look at sap.com for Clean Core, there's also a central page with more information about Clean Core, not only about extensibility and hints what actually it means to be a Clean Core. Then there's a question from Sumit. What are the tools available to check the data cleanliness in the system? There are existing tools which you might know from the past, like DVM Cockpit, for example, which help to check the cleanliness or consistency of the data, for example, for a given system. Where we don't have this in yet, but currently looking to integrate this is, for example, the Clean Core dashboard, also to have a dimension of data in, similar to what you know, for example, from the DVM dashboard, DVM Cockpit. Then we have here. Okay, these were already the questions. No, don't think any further questions. So, thank you very much for listening to this session. I hope it was helpful to understand the principles and basics around Clean Core, and actually to get you started where to get more information and how to deep dive into the topic and how to understand better how you, for your system and your environment, actually could move in the direction of Clean Core. Thank you.